Bubblicious, 25p. Snickers, 40p. I don't even have to smell your breath. Cheesy Watsits, 25p.
I'm sorry about this, Mr. Harit.
These things happen. Kids will be kids. You dirty bastard. Poppets, 30 pence.
Hi, my name is Sanjeev Kohli. You're watching me on DESIblitz.com.
DESIblitz.com.
Sanjeev, thank you so much for joining us and speaking to us today at the DESIblitz Literature Festival. Before we go on to Goodness Gracious Me, how did you get into writing for comedy and writing in general for this type of industry?
Okay, I'll try and give you the potted version that isn't as long as the Quran. I had no intention of getting into the business. I'd been a massive fan of comedy as a child, but I was very quiet and studious and quite reserved. Original plan was I was going to become a doctor. I actually started a medical degree and I hated it, and I did a maths degree instead because I'm that interesting. I started a postgrad and I hated that, and I was kind of signing on and travelling and watching Neighbours twice a day because you could back in those days ask your dad. And then I got the phone call that changed my life, and it was a family friend, and I describe her as one of the Asians that escaped. And what I mean by that is that she didn't go into engineering or accountancy or medicine or her dad's cash and carry. She went into the media. She escaped. And she was producing radio shows, and she got in touch and she said, "What are you up to these days?" And I said, "Well, I've just watched Neighbours twice, if that answers your question. Couldn't be up to much less. I'm very unemployed and unemployable at the moment." And she said, "The reason I'm asking, it's a bit left field, is as you know, I'm one of the Asians that escaped. And I'm producing this radio show, and part of the remit is that we want to unearth new presenting talent, and I thought of you. And so do you want to come and audition to present this show?" And it wasn't a comedy show, it was like a magazine show. And I said, "Well, yeah, if you want. I mean, it's your funeral, I'll come and audition for you." And I got the job. And suddenly I'm a radio presenter, and I'm finding that I'm enjoying it and I'm quite good at it. And because I'd watched so much comedy as a kid, I'm talking about things like The Goodies and Monty Python and The Young Ones and, you know, all the kind of traditional British comedy, sketch show, sitcom. And Punjabi culture is quite a funny culture. We're quite loud, colourful. We like a laugh. We like to rip the out of each other. I had that kind of comedy default setting. So when I'm writing the scripts for my show, and I say scripts, just links for this radio show, I just put little jokes in just to keep myself happy, because no one was listening to this radio show. So just to keep me amused and the two people in the booth, I would write these jokes. And then I got a reputation for being a radio presenter that could be funny. Not a stand-up as such, but a radio presenter that could be funny. And that really led to sketch writing, and that's really what led to Goodness Gracious Me and all the other kind of comedy work that I've done. So that's the potted history.
And then when you finally started to work on Goodness Gracious Me, was it harder to put these sketches together in terms of, you know, now you're kind of writing for people to perform these things on TV? Or was it a bit easier in terms of coming from the type of background, understanding jokes yourself? Was it easy to put a pen on paper?
Well, I mean, Goodness Gracious Me was quite a traditional sketch show, really. I mean, it followed all the same rules as all the sketch shows that I'd loved. And I had learned how to write sketches watching those shows. I mean, when I first got asked to write a sketch for any show, I'd never done it before. I thought, well, how do you put a sketch together? I don't know, but I've watched about 3 million. How hard can it be? So I'd watch a sketch, I'll say, okay, right, there's the nugget of the idea, there's the comic observation, how have they built up to that? The first thing you notice is it shouldn't be any more than 2 minutes, because then you lose people's attention. And then it's how you construct the joke, where the punchline goes, how you end the thing, and so I learned the basic kind of. It's almost like putting together an IKEA wardrobe. You knew how to put a joke together, and then goodness gracious me came along. I thought, well, I've got about 50,000 things I want to say. It's just how to contextualize them. But I was absolutely, my head was bursting with ideas, things that you'd be around the dinner table when you're 9, and your dad would say something, your brother would say something, and you're thinking, there's a really funny idea there. It's how to put that into a sketch, and that was, I suppose, where the kind of learning came into it. But there's so many comedic observations, and the big joy for me writing for Goodness Gracious Me was, it's like when you watch Michael McIntyre or Billy Connolly make an on-point observation, and you think to yourself, I thought that was just me. Like Michael McIntyre does a lovely routine about when the clocks go forward, and he says, you got the clock in the kitchen, the IKEA one, yeah? I think I've got that clock, yeah? But you don't get a proper ladder, you just get a bar stool. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And like, how are you having the balls to make these really incredible niche observations? And everyone's resonating, because it's a specific kind of laughter you get with that. Is, what? That's you as well? And the prime example of that is when Goodness Gracious Me was still on Radio 4. So I put a sketch in to the producer Anil Gupta, and the idea was it was Asian MasterChef. Okay, and it was quite a basic idea. So the idea is MasterChef in India, right? And I think it was Meera played the presenter, and I think it was Govinda was the chef. And she said, so what are you making for your first course? He said, well, for the first course, it'll be from the court of Emperor Aurangzeb himself. It will be a pigeon, a wood-speckled pigeon, marinated in yogurt, asafoetida, and coriander, and jeera, marinated for 3 days and cooked in a tandoor. What about your main course? Again, from the court of the Mughals, it will be an entire goat, marinated for 7 weeks. He's going on about this main course. And what about your pudding? Fruit cocktail and tip-top.
Naveed!
What?
You lousy big shit sack and Isa.
Aye, just 'cause she was getting her groceries out of Hyperdale's, you bagger!
I get this. Here. He sees Isa buying her groceries for somewhere other than his shop, and he sacks her.
Now wait a minute. I didn't sack her. I let her go.
Sack, let go, shite, jobby. That woman has been nothing but loyal to you.
Loyal? Don't talk to me about loyalty. I've ran that shop since 1975, and it's been no picnic. When I came here, I had to put up with a lot of shite. Neds, drunks, graffiti. But I stuck it out. Every single morning of life, 6 o'clock, to take in your rolls, sort your papers. Every single person in here, at one time or another, has struggled for cash and come to me and asked for tick. And I've given it to you. And now, for the first time ever, when I need you to show me some support, where are you? Hyperdales! Shopping like posh spice on coke. I wasn't sacked for shopping somewhere else.
And so, to me, that observation was that in Indian, certainly Punjabi culture, we made the best food, but we sort of punched under our weight when it comes to dessert. Because I'd go to family parties, the best biryanis and the best lamb curries, and then it came to pudding, fruit cocktail and tip-top. If you're lucky, a gulab jamun or a rasgulla, right? So I thought, I gave this sketch to Anil, and he said, I'll be honest, I don't quite get it, but it made the cast laugh, so we're going to record it. And I live in Glasgow, I didn't always get to the audience recordings, but I came to this one in London when it was still on the radio, and they did the sketch, and the laugh, it was like a roller coaster. It was like 300 people saying, oh my God, I thought that was just our house. Fruit cocktail and tip-top. And it's just something about that combination. So that was a real revelation to me, was that you can, if you can make one of those observations that will resonate, and it doesn't have to be a politicized thing or a thing about race, just a cultural thing, then that was really the sort of stuff that we could do, that no one else could do. So that was a bit of a revelation to me.
All my life I have avoided the poison, but today I'm taking a walk on the wild side.
Oh!
I'm on top of the world looking down at creation. It's the only explanation I can find. Me now, 'cause the love that I found ever since you've been around, your love put me at the top of the world.
Were there any, not troubles, but I guess challenges with the other writers in terms of them understanding the type of content that you're trying to put through, or was it a collaborative effort?
Well, I mean, the way it was weird because I was the one that wasn't in the M25. I was the one in Glasgow, and they were all doing their thing. So they would commission me to write a certain number of sketches. So they give you a 20-minute commission, and what that meant was that you to write 20 minutes worth, at least 20 minutes worth of usable sketches, and they could use as much as they wanted. So my challenge was to write the funniest and the most resonant sketches I could to make them laugh, to get in the show. So that was my challenge. So I thought, well, I'm having that battle with myself. Is that observation too niche? Is it not? There were certain things I knew would work. Like I used to write the Bungra Man for Govinda. I just like that idea of someone finding a pair of leather trousers that Johnny from Lap had discarded and puts them on and becomes a Bungra Man. I thought, can't go wrong with that. And I knew that Govinda, who's so good at playing those bigger characters, would absolutely nail it. I wrote the very first sketch that was on the telly show, which was about the Jonathan sketch about the white guy that goes to work in Delhi and they can't pronounce his name. And I knew that would go down well because we've all been there. I mean, my name's Sanjeev Kohli. I've been called Stanley Macaulay. You know, I mean, it's happened to all of us. You know, my brother Raj, who is a policeman and he's built like a brick shithouse, used to be called Reg by the duty manager. I thought, mate, Reg, look at him. He's like a 5'10" jerk. You're calling him Reg? So I knew that would work. So I guess I knew that if I found it funny and the production team found it funny, then it was funny. It's like a 2-tick system, if you know what I mean. But for the most part, most of my sketches got used, and I was very grateful that they did, because it was lovely to be able to make those observations that you thought were funny and for them to go on a proper network hit show. That was an absolute luxury.
And what was your favorite sketch that you wrote for the show?
That I wrote a sketch that never made it on the TV version, but it was on the radio version. So there was a couple of sketches. So the first one was Partition the movie. Okay, so the idea was you had a couple of Amir Khan plays Baldev. Come on, we've got to get to the right side of the border before nightfall. And then, but the kind of punchline was Jim Carrey played General Dwyer. Well, should you put the border here, or should you put it here? So it was making a point about how the British arse things up, right? But then I wrote a follow-up sketch, which was Partition merchandise. And I wrote this sketch about the Partition burger, which was pork on one side, beef on the other. I thought controversial, but I liked that I got away with it, but that never made it to the TV version. Beyond that, I did like the Jonathan sketch because it made the point. And what's lovely is if you can actually make quite a serious cultural point, but put it in a joke. It's like a Trojan horse. People don't like to be told, don't like to be taught, like didactically, like a head teacher. But if you can hide it in a joke, like a Trojan horse, it's like Going for an English. People will have watched Going for an English and thought, oh, I behave like that in Indian restaurants. So as much as I find that really funny, I've learned something. And hopefully people will have watched the Jonathan sketch and thought, yeah, I've seen that in offices. I'll keep an eye out for that. So that's quite nice.
He thinks it's a big joke, and I'm thinking, is it me? Am I the crazy man here? I mean, what do you think, Naveed? Naveed?
I'm not listening to you, Isa. I'm listening to my iPod. We knock your bullshit to somebody who gives a toss.
All I'm saying is,
Oh, bloody weak. She's trying to kill Willie. She's trying to kill Willie. Big green up for the cafe is a murdering cow. Did you hear any of what I was saying there?
No.
Quality.
Do you think the jokes that you wrote then would still have the same impact or have a different impact if you wrote them now?
I think depressingly, a lot of the sketches are still relevant. I mean, I was saying this actually to Govinda and Nina before. If I tried to write a Suella Braverman character, then they'd have said too far-fetched. This bizarre woman in denial about her skin colour, who says that multiculturalism doesn't work. Well, how the did you get your job, you f***ing idiot? Sorry for swearing, but I f***ing hate her. So yeah, it's annoyingly or depressingly, we still have issues, and yeah, a lot of it. I mean, yeah, a lot of it wouldn't work, but I think most of it, I think, still resonates, and we would have liked to have moved on since 1999 and 2001, but we haven't moved on nearly as much as we should have.
When you look back on the show, and of course it's an effort between yourself, the other writers, the actors, production team and everything, is there a moment that stands out to you from the show?
I think it's not. I had heard. Okay, so we went on Radio 4, and I'm already thinking, "Oh, is this going to work? Is it going to work?" I mean, I know it makes my Asian friends laugh. Is it going to work? And then it's quite funny. There's two things actually. A mate of mine, Iqbal, who lived here in Handsworth, in Birmingham. He said that he overheard these two like Asian white boys chatting, right? And they're saying, "Oh, you heard about this show called Goodness Gracious Me? It's on this bizarre channel called Radio 4." They'd never heard of Radio 4, and they were tuning into Radio 4. I thought, well, that's a moment. You can get these young Asian white boys listening to BBC Radio 4. And then I heard that kids, like white kids in playgrounds across the UK, were saying "Kiss My Chuddies." And you think to yourself, I never saw that happening. It genuinely seemed to cross the cultural divide. And what it showed was laughter is universal. And, you know, I'm of a generation. I mean, I was born and brought up in the UK. My mum and dad came over from India. So I'm, second generation. We were really embarrassed by Indian culture. I know I was. You know, I remember when they used to show Bollywood films on Channel 4 when I was 12 years old. And please don't let my white friends watch this. It's embarrassing. They'll make me do backflips in the playground. But then, 15 years after that, we're getting to tell these stories and people are laughing, not at us, they're laughing with us. So that, I'd say, was a moment, definitely.
Congratulations, Mr. Wilson. You're the last person to buy wank mags from my shop. It's not so bad. You look like, oh Christ, who is it? Oh, you know.
you pair of half-wits.
Well, we're on edge, Isa.
Aye, your place had just been done.
It could have been anybody at the door.
Aye, but it wasn't anybody. It was me. I have scrubbed and scrubbed at it. I don't know how long I'm going to be like this.
4 or 5 weeks.
Well, that's marvellous.
Braveheart. You look like Mel Gibson. They can take our lives, but they'll never take my handbag.
Now, of course, you've worked on other shows and wrote for different mediums or messages and people with different audiences and things like that. But what's the main difference that you feel when you're writing for these different shows in terms of, do you have to approach them differently in terms of your creative process? And do you think that nothing really compares to Goodness Gracious Me, or is everything kind of different in your own sense?
No, I think the creative process doesn't change. I have a certain way of writing, jokes and a certain way of approaching life. I mean, I think all you are ever really doing, it's funny because while I was writing Goodness Gracious Me, I was writing for another sketch show in Scotland called Chewing the Fat. So I was doing all my Scottish jokes on Chewing the Fat and doing all my Upper jokes on Goodness Gracious Me. It was the same process, 2 different cultures. But all you're really doing is, and this is kind of what comedy is, it's stepping 1 degree away and looking at a situation and thinking, does no one else notice how bizarre this is? I think you can be embroiled in a situation and not see the humour. If you just step outside a little bit and observe and think, why is no one talking about this? This is bizarre. And you can do that with anything, really. So the actual comedic process doesn't change. I mean, what I will say is, with Goodness Gracious Me, is it's things like Going for an English or Jonathan, where you can do the role reversal thing. That was quite unique. But no, creatively, I would say the same. And I think that's maybe why Goodness Gracious Me was so successful, because, you know, the writing team, the production team, the on-screen team, we were all of a generation that had grown up with a lot of British comedy. I think Britain, in terms of comedy and music, has always punched above its weight. You know, forget the empire. I think what we should celebrate is our comedy and our music. And I certainly know, growing up with that stuff, that comedy was where it was at. So you had like a hardcore group of people that had grown up on this comedy and knew all the comedy shortcuts and all the kind of comedy tropes, but also had like a lifetime of Asian experience to funnel through. So that's possibly where the uniqueness of Goodness Gracious Me lies.
And just lastly, for anyone, especially from a British Asian or South Asian background, looking to get into this field in terms of writing for sketches or just within media or in the industry, what advice would you give?
Well, sadly, sketch comedy seems to have fallen down by the wayside, which is tragic, because I think it's a really brilliant way of learning how to do comedy, because you learn about plot, characterization, dialogue, all that stuff. But you have to get to the point in 2 minutes, so it really, really focuses you. So that's what I love about sketch comedy. But then, what people, I'm going to say youngsters, like I'm someone's uncle at a wedding, what the youngsters have, which we didn't have, is the internet. So if you really, really want to do sketch comedy, film your own sketches, do it on an iPhone. You'll learn how to edit, you'll learn timing, you'll learn all this stuff. And you see some really, really funny stuff on TikTok. So get it out there. And the beauty of TikTok and YouTube and all the rest of it is you can be as niche as you like. And that's the other thing about comedy, is you got to believe that if you find it funny, then it's funny. And this is a struggle that I still have. I sometimes think, yeah, I think it's funny. Does that mean it's funny? Well, it should. You don't need 2 ticks. You just need the 1 tick. So if you can get to a stage where you think, I think it's funny, I'm going to film that. Just do it. Put it out there and you'll probably get found. I mean, you'd think it's difficult, but actually you will get found and you'll get a following. That's a luxury that we never had, that technology.
DESIblitz.com